If you're someone who loves astrology, you may have found yourself scratching your head once or twice when discovering there is more than one way to track our zodiac signs. The most common are two different styles, tropical and sidereal, also known as sidereal. But is there one that's better than the other when finding information on your personality type? Hey lunatics, it's Lady Luna, and today we're diving into a topic that has sparked much debate in spiritual communities for a very long time, but a fascinating topic nonetheless. Which zodiac style do I personally believe is better, and how are they different? If you're new to my channel, I'm Lady Luna and I love making videos about metaphysical and mystical topics, so be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a future video on these kind of topics. So tropical astrology is the kind most often used here in the West. For example, if you look up your favorite celebrity on the Famous Birthdays website, it will tell you their zodiac sign according to tropical astrology. Sidereal is a different type of astrology more commonly used in the East and follows a different technique for matching the stars with our birth dates and other events. Here is a chart of the birth dates of tropical astrology versus sidereal astrology. There's also galactic astrology, which is an entirely different topic for another day. But for the context of this video, feel free to pause and figure out which sign you are in both tropical and sidereal astrology. For some, they just have one sun sign that matches both. For others like myself, my sun sign is in Libra in tropical and Virgo in sidereal, so it can differ from person to person. Here are some other great explanations from some YouTubers on this who are quite savvy to this topic.
So tropical, just to put it in a pretty straightforward way, is based on the seasons. It's based on the equinox. That is what tropical is based on. Now tropical is a very heliocentric perception of the movement of the planets. So in tropical we look at the sun and the relationship of the sun to the earth, and so that's why in tropical we pay so much attention to sun signs. In Western astrology it's all about sun signs, whereas we'll see later sidereal stresses different planets and their importance a little bit differently. But tropical is very sun centric. It's focused on the self, it's focused on the identity, personality, the ego, which is what represents the sun. And then the seasons are divvied up into 4 seasons, right? So at the beginning of spring, we have Aries season. At the beginning of summer, we have Cancer season. At the beginning of fall, we have Libra season. And at the beginning of winter, we have Capricorn season. So Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn are the cardinal signs, and they start those seasons. And within the 4 seasons, there are 3 zodiac signs. So I feel like with tropical astrology, it's definitely based on the seasons. So with the seasons, it tends to be more vague. It's not as specific as sidereal, as I will get into in a second, but just the baseline fact of tropical and what it's based on. It's based on the equinox and the relationship of the earth to the equinox and the precession of the equinox, and really it stresses the relationship of the sun and the pattern in which the sun moves in relation to the earth. So the sun stays in one zodiac sign for a month, so we have 12 months, so it's really on that timetable. So essentially that's tropical astrology. It's based on the seasons and the equinox. But let's talk about the fact of sidereal. So sidereal is based on the fixed stars. So again, I feel like a really good quote for all of this is as above, so below. So with sidereal, I feel like it follows that axiom or quote a little bit more closely, where the fixed stars don't move as much as the equinox. The equinox actually shifts quite a bit over thousands of years, whereas the fixed stars don't shift as much over thousands of years. And so at its base level, sidereal astrology is based on the relationship of the moon to the fixed stars, whereas tropical, like I said, it's based on the sun in relationship to the earth and the earth's seasons. It's not relating to the fixed stars at all. So I feel like with sidereal astrology, it really aligns with that quote of as above, so below. So in Vedic astrology, for example, Vedic astrology uses sidereal, and in Vedic astrology they would stress the importance of the moon sign and how the moon is shifting in relationship to the fixed stars and constellations in the sky. And with a Western astrologer, or like in Western astrology, they would stress the movement of the sun. Hence, like if you asked a Western astrologer what's more important in the chart, they might say sun sign, whereas the Vedic astrologer is for sure going to say the moon sign. So there's a huge sort of divide there between sun and moon, and so sidereal really stresses that importance of the moon. More specifically, Vedic astrology stresses the importance of the moon. So ultimately we can really chalk up sidereal astrology to being based on the fixed stars, the fixed constellations in the sky, not based on the seasons, not based on the equinox, which is what tropical is doing, but it's based on the fixed constellations, and it really stresses the relationship of the moon and how that moon and the moon phases shift throughout those fixed constellations, whereas tropical is stressing how the sun moves throughout the seasons, if that makes sense.
Most people first find out about Vedic astrology when NASA or Time magazine comes out with like your zodiac sign has changed again. It seems to do this about every year or so. Comes out and is like, we have a fucus and you're actually in the wrong constellation because the constellations have shifted. Well, actually, they haven't shifted. The Earth has shifted due to the precession of the equinoxes. Every 26,000 years, the Earth will do a complete 180 and choose different north stars. Did you know that? Yeah, it's something that happens. So the constellations do move outside of us, our sphere. If we are the ego here, everything moves around us, but we're really just moving. So it changes, okay, because of this main fact. Vedic astrology makes sure that it shifts with the constellations. Tropical will always bring Aries season down to the first day of spring. So about every 72 years, Vedic astrology becomes one more degree off of tropical astrology.
The ancient Babylonians are known as the first people to develop the system of astrology. Some believe it was specifically the Chaldeans. One way that they did this was by keeping track of every baby born in their area year after year after year, along with the position of the stars in the sky upon the date and time of their birth. As the children grew up, the Chaldeans kept a detailed record of their behaviors and personality traits, thereby slowly creating the personality typing system of astrology that we know today. Over time, this system split into the two astrological systems, tropical versus sidereal, since not everyone agreed on how the signs should be measured. Since the zodiac constellations shift every 72 years or so, this ultimately caused the divide in philosophy among astrologers even to this day. Here is some more info on how astrology developed in those ancient times.
Around the 2nd millennium BC, ancient Babylonian astrology emerged. It all began with stargazing. They started noticing the movement of celestial bodies and how these affected life on Earth. There were certain stars in the skies that moved. We now know these are planets. Some of them noticed some stars created patterns. Today we call these constellations. And that at times the moon appeared larger than usual, affecting the tides, a phenomenon we now know today as apogee and perigee. They realized that by tracking the movement of these objects, they could also predict changes in seasons and eclipses. The Babylonians didn't know it, but these celestial observations and predictions would become the early foundations of astronomy. They saw the planets as representations of their gods. Jupiter was Marduk, the patron god of the city of Babylon. Venus was Ishtar, the goddess of beauty, fertility, and war. Saturn was Ninurta, the god of farming, hunting, and healing. Mercury was Nabu, the god of wisdom, and Mars was Nergal, the god of the sun and the underworld. Babylonians carefully observed the movement of the sun, moon, planets, and constellations in the night sky and interpreted whether or not the stars carried a message. They noticed that as seasons changed, certain constellations would take over the night sky. 12 of these constellations would become what we know today as the zodiac. Astrology and horoscopes as we know them now come from the Greeks. Astrology was used in two ways, as a form of divination to inquire about the present, past, and future, and also as a form of exploration of human nature and their connection to the stars.
I definitely support the idea that each individual should choose whichever system rings true to them. After all, it's clear there is some truth to both versions. However, I'm sure some of you are wondering which one I personally choose in my astrological focus. My answer might surprise you. I actually prefer tropical astrology. Now, this may shock a lot of seasoned astrologers. All I ever hear on this topic is how sidereal is supposedly better or more accurate than tropical astrology. While I understand that sidereal is based on the movement of the stars and planets, I resonate so much with tropical because it's focused more on our movement with the seasons. In other words, tropical astrology bases your personality type on the zodiac sign that matches the season you were born in, regardless of where the stars and planets were in ancient times compared to now. I think there is so much truth to the idea of our environment having an effect on us from birth and helping shape who we are as we grow up. Believe it or not, this idea of the seasons determining personality traits actually is backed up by science. And to prove this, I'll share some quotes from a few articles on these studies that you might find interesting. An article on redtry.com has an article called How a Baby's Birth Month Can Affect Personality According to Science. It states, as Jeffrey Kluger reports in Time, multiple studies have shown the effects of seasonal changes on babies, both in the womb and as newborns. For example, for babies born in the winter when cold and flu season is in full swing, viruses are more likely to affect maternal health and infant development. Another example found that mouse pups who were born in winter had a difficult time adjusting to circadian rhythms as days grew longer in summer and had poorer eating habits and lowered activity levels. Kluger breaks down the seasons and typical personality traits that come with each one based on scientific research. Spring babies are more likely to be optimistic, but on the downside, they are also the group most susceptible to depression. Summer babies also display similar optimistic personalities, but they are often prone to rapidly flip-flopping from good to bad moods. Fall babies show the lowest levels of depression and the least likely to develop bipolar disorder, but they have a tendency to be irritable. Winter babies face higher levels of depression, seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, and schizophrenia. However, they also tend to be the most creative thinkers. Time.com also has a similar article called How the Month You Were Born In Affects Your Personality According to Science. It states, a flurry of recent studies in the last half-dozen years have sought to extend these findings to humans, with researchers profiling the temperaments of college students and adults and then tracing back to their birth seasons, looking for broad seasonal patterns. Consistently, if preliminarily, they've found them. Caution, your results may vary. And then it lists each season and the differences of personality within each. Feel free to pause the screen here and read them all if you wish. Keep in mind this article author really seems to like poking fun at people who believe in astrology, so you may see the odd comment in there about that, but that's okay. And lastly, theatlantic.com had an article called How Birth Season Affects Personality, in which they state, it's surprising that a study presented at the European College of Neuropsychopharmacology, long word, over the weekend suggests that the month in which we were born in can in fact have an important effect on our mood. For the paper, Xenia Gonda, an associate professor at Semmelweis University in Budapest, asked 366 university students to fill out a questionnaire that aims to determine which of 4 kinds of temperaments they most personify. The questions included things like, my mood often changes for no reason, and I love to tackle new projects, even if risky, and I complain a lot. She then correlated the answers with their birthdays. All of this information resonated with me so much upon learning it. I have always believed that it's not in the stars or planets that control us or dictate our behaviors, but our behaviors and personalities can be measured and tracked by the stars and planets. This is why I follow tropical astrology and don't really worry too much about sidereal. There's a second reason for me choosing this as well. According to tropical astrology, my sun sign is a Libra, but according to sidereal astrology, I'm a Virgo. This never really sat well with me. If you look at Virgo's personality versus a Libra's, they're not much alike. In fact, some believe that Virgos and Libras are likely to have conflict with one another, mainly because Virgos are the fixers who are very meticulous and feel the need to correct things if they're wrong, whereas Libras are the balanced sign of the scales. They don't often take sides. They like to look at both sides of an argument equally, and their view is anything but black and white. Virgos will assert their opinion in order to make a situation right, but Libras are more the peacekeepers and are likely to hold back something they'd like to say in order to avoid conflict. In my mind, I am 100% a Libra sun sign, and there's no way I could be a Virgo at all, knowing my personality traits. For some people, perhaps they resonate more with their sidereal sign rather than their tropical sign, and that's perfectly fine too. I think it's up to everyone as an individual to know what works best for them. Either way, I think astrology of any type is a great tool to help us get to know ourselves and others on a deeper level and create more understanding of the world around us, which is a beautiful thing. Thank you for watching, guys. If you liked this video, be sure to push the like button so I know that you liked it. Also, subscribe to this channel and hit the bell so you never miss a future video. If you made it this far, comment the secret word of the day, which is compass. Talk to you later, guys. Bye!